All right, so we are finishing our notes from yesterday. We should have time in class to work on the practice. My first hour had 30 minutes and we definitely do not need 30 minutes. But of course, there's always like those few kids that choose to just waste their time. And you know, it is what it is. At this point, it's May. So like, I'm not going to really go out of my way to correct that behavior that I've been trying to correct for like the entire year. It's on you. At some point, like you will graduate. I hope at least you will graduate. You'll be in the real world. You'll be 18 years old. I don't know that your parents are necessarily going to let you live with them forever. So you have to have good work ethic. Even if you decide not to go to college, that's fine. You can still be successful, but like it really just depends what your work ethic is. If you enjoy like serving tables, I don't know, being a cashier, whatever, great. But, and I have people that like my parents, like they didn't go like to college and stuff. But I would hate to see you guys just hate your job in a few years. I say set yourself up for success best way you can, and that's to have good work ethic. Even if you don't have the best grades, you can tell when someone's a hard worker. All right, so there's that. Regardless, I will check the practice today too. So, you know, if I give you a decent amount of time in class, I do expect for it to be done. It's not that many questions. Also, for that practice, Amen, it's in the secure illuminate. For that practice, I do have the key over here. Now, if I'm giving you the answers, I need to see some work shown. And if you look at my paper, there's lots of work to show. So earlier when I was checking, like my first hour, for example, I was really confused on how they were getting these random answers. Part of me thinks they were just writing stuff down so that when I check it, like I could give them points. But you don't get points if there's no work shown. And if you cheat on your homework, whether it's, I don't know, sneaking a picture of the key or copying off a friend, like, okay, congratulations, you get 10 homework points. You're taking a quiz Friday. So this is to prepare you for that quiz. So that's why I'm not necessarily doing a binder check for this small unit that we're doing, but the notes will help you for Friday. So take them, don't take them, but it's something that you can use on Friday's test. The test Friday would ordinarily be that unit test, the eliminate portion, but I won't count it as 100 points, even though I do think it's easy enough. I'll just count it like somewhere around 50 points. Because it's still technically a unit test. It's like 8 questions. But we didn't have as much time on it as like the other units. So any questions on anything I just said? All right, so then make sure if you're ever absent, everything's always posted in Schoology, notes, videos, assignments. The actual assignment is uploaded to Schoology and the assignment link, you view it, submit it there, all that stuff. And here's, again, I talked about this yesterday, so I won't talk about it too much today, but today is one of the final tutoring dates. So if it's a priority to you, your grade, then make arrangements and be here. I will say that we have like a mandatory all staff meeting that they just scheduled today at 2:30, but like if people show up like for tutoring and you know I'm busy helping, then I'll stay here for that. So if I'm making it a priority, then no excuses from you. We're not extending more tutoring dates beyond those 3 days. Okay, so again, it's all in your hands. You're great. All right, so we left off here yesterday. I don't think we finished step 3. So what coordinates did we use? Because these were the ones that my 6-hour used, so they're probably not exactly the same. Okay, so one of the coordinates they also identified as being on the line that we had, and then they identified this one instead. Regardless, what did we get for our slope yesterday? When we did these 2 points? -1 point. Okay, so isn't that pretty close to what my 6-hour got, which is -1? Yeah. So you can expect that your answers probably won't be the exact same as the person next to you if you use different coordinates. As long as it's on the line, And I would recommend places where you don't have to do like a whole lot of estimating and stuff. As long as it's on the line, it should be close. I'll show you how to get it exact later, but it should be close. And then if you have like a multiple choice test, you should be picking the answer that's closest to the slope that you got. And closest to the y-intercept that you got. So now we're gonna solve for the y-intercept. Now we do have a graph here. If you can clearly see the y-intercept on your graph, then just use that. Can I clearly see it on this graph? Okay, then what's the y-intercept? Okay, so we can't clearly see it on this graph, because the y-intercept would be where it touches the y-axis, and we can't assume either, like, even if it looks like it's going in a certain direction, we can't assume, but we can solve for it algebraically. We have all the necessary information. So to solve it, you plug it into y equals mx plus b. You guys yesterday found the slope to be negative 1.1, so I'll use that value. And then what's an x and a y that I can use? I know it. X and y on the line. 15 and 90. So it can be, and it probably should be, one of the coordinates that you use to estimate your trend line. So a coordinate that's on the line. So like 1590 could be that coordinate that you plug into here. Which one's the x, the 15 or the 90? So then I should put that where the x goes. And then the 90 will go where the y goes. I'm gonna go with mine. All right, and then it's just solving. So what's negative 1.1 times 15? We got 2. Right? So this part is more like, can you use a calculator? So negative 1.1 times 15 is negative 16.5 plus b equals 90. We're trying to get the b alone. How could I cancel out that negative 16.5? Sorry, what was that? You add it. That's how you can make it 0. Whatever you do on one side. So 90 plus 16.5 is, I'm kind of running out of room, but 106.5. That's what my y-intercept is approximately. Now, earlier today, when we did it, we calculated it to be 100. If you look at the notes that are posted in Schoology, it's 105. So again, depending on what coordinates you use, the answer might be slightly different, but it should still be close. All right, so the trend line, the line of best fit, is y equals what with the slope? Negative 1.1 x, and then my y-intercept was 106.5 approximately. Again, when you look at the notes in Schoology, you might say negative 1x plus 105. It's still close. Questions, comments, concerns on that? All right. So we will do a your turn. It probably won't be this one though. I don't think we need a million your turns. I want you to have time to practice. So it'll be the one that's on the page after, but you will use the steps that are on this page. So first you need to identify 2 coordinates that are on the line. So we'll kind of set you up before I just let you move on. So on your paper, write down 2 coordinates that appear to be on the line. And then I'll call on some people, so I'll have two prepared. At table 8, tell me one of the coordinates you picked. 28,160. Did I hear you right? 2160? 28,160. All right, so let's see. 28,160 would be over here. Is that on the line?
Oh, no.
Okay. Try again.
170.
Sorry, what did you say, Atlanta?
21 and 170.
21 and 170. So here and here, I would agree that that's on the line. All right, someone at table 4, give me another one. 22 and 160. All right, so this one, it's like a little bit off the line, but I know that in the notes, because we did this, I think we have 2 coordinates last year, it still gave us the same answer. So we can use these. However, I will say that you'll want to use ones that go like really nicely through the crosshair. At 22,160, it's just like slightly off. You see, like how it's like slightly off the line. I know that it'll still work because I've worked it out and it still gives me the same answer, but another good one to pick could be like 20 and 180. That's like perfectly in the center. And that's, I think about it. I don't really see much others. Okay, but questions on your picking? Does that make sense? Okay. So as long as it's on the line, it's fine. Then what do you do after that? Calculate the slope, and then after that, you will figure out your y-intercept by plugging in the slope-intercept form. So from here, and if you need to make sure that your coordinates are correct, then, call me over and I'll come look at it. But from here, now that we've approved some coordinates that are on the line, finish the rest of the problem. All right, come up with your y equals mx plus b format for the equation of the line. I'll give you like 2 minutes. Table 5, what do you guys get for the slope? Tell me the slope formula. So that would be slope intercept form, y equals mx plus b. What about just for the n? Rise over run, you could try. Okay, we're 21, 170, 22, 160. So what's my rise here? Going from 170 to 160. So it is not going to be 1 over 1. So that's why I kind of caution you against using rise over run when the numbers aren't like 1 by 1. What's the change class from 170 to 160? And since we're going down, it's going to be -10 for my rise. And then what's my run from 21 to 22? 1. So when you do rise over run, read the graph closely. We're going down 10 here, not this 1. So it's -10 for my slope. So that's why I would really think that this one we highlighted yesterday is best. Star highlighted, because once you find the 2 coordinates that are on the line, make it x1, y1, x2, y2, and then plug it into the formula. Which again, you should all be looking in your notes for that. Unless you know by heart, which you probably should, because it's like one of the biggest formulas we use. So then plugged in like this, table 7, what would the top part of my fraction look like? Okay, so I think you use slightly different numbers. What about the numbers that I have up here?
160, subtract 170.
Okay, good. So y2 minus y1. The way that I labeled it here, table 8, what would it be on the bottom? So actually it would be 22 minus 20. Right? You can't flip flop them that way. That's why I say label it, don't skip that step. It has to be x2 minus x1, because we did y2 minus y1. All right, and then 160 minus 170 is what class? And 22 minus 21 is 4. So yeah, that's why it has to be that. Otherwise, I would have gotten a positive 10 for our slope when it should be negative. Deanna? We'll add you to line.
Oh, wait.
Guys, I'm in the middle. All right, so that's my slope. That's just part of the answer, but hopefully you can knock out a few wrong answers just based off of the slope. The slope should definitely not be positive. How can I solve for my y-intercept? Put one of the coordinates into the equation. Doesn't matter which one. Really doesn't matter as long as it's on the line. I would suggest using one of the two that you picked. So then, which one do you guys want to plug into the formula? Okay, this one we're plugging in. So then what's my y? What is my m? Negative 10, and then what's my x? 22. So then solve negative 10 times 22 is negative 220. How do you get the b alone? How do you cancel the negative 220? Add 220, whatever you do on one side. And then b ends up equaling what? 380. Now, even if you did different coordinates, like if you did 20 and 180 for one of your coordinates, you still would have gotten b as 380. Or if you did a completely other coordinate, then it should just be close. Now, if you did the assuming that I tell you not to do, it looks like it's going that way and that my y-intercept is about 190, but that's why you can't do that. Okay, you can't assume nothing is guaranteed to be drawn to scale, so that's why you have to know how to solve it algebraically. And then put it in slope-intercept form with your slope and your y-intercept replaced with what we solved for. All right, questions, comments, concerns? All right, we're almost done. So this really just depends on you, like on your level of participation. So another part of your test, which I think is very easy, and I feel like we've done it all year, is interpreting the values, like for your slope and for your y-intercept. Granted, we're missing like the paragraph that usually comes with word problems. So I'll explain this graph a little bit. It's probably like a maple syrup farm that, of course, based on the temperature, they either produce more or less maple syrup. So when the temperature increases, do they produce more or less maple syrup? Less. And if you quantify it, it's decreasing at a rate of about -10 per degree Fahrenheit. All right, the input, the X, is your temperature. And the output is the gallons of maple syrup. So then these down here would be good test questions. Would you say that this correlation of this graph is strong or weak? Strong, because the data points are all pretty close to the line. So we can use this equation that we just estimated to solve problems like this, where we're using our line of fit to solve for the gallons of maple syrup at 15, 30, 23 degrees Fahrenheit. Where would I be plugging in those numbers? And then I do go. So we would be plugging in those numbers where in the equation. No. Try again. The Y, if you look at your graph, would be gallons of maple syrup, which is what we're solving for, right? So the Y should stay Y. So then we're plugging in these numbers into the X. So you have to know, like, now how to read the data and interpret it. So if I was solving this for how many gallons at 15 degrees, I need to plug it into the right spot. If they give you a graph, easy, because you know this is your x-axis, so temperature should go in the x, and then the other one's your y-axis, so gallons should go in the y. All right, solve this with -10 times 15. Plus 380 gives me what value? 230? Okay. And that is 230 what? 230 degrees?
Yes.
230 gallons of maple syrup. All right. So interpreting each part. Question. I'll give you a you try, but I also want to tell you this now. All right, so also we could use the line of fit to estimate for other things that we didn't necessarily measure when we took our data. So like in this one, we're finding out what would the temperature be when there are 50, 150, 200 gallons of maple syrup. So where would I plug in these numbers? X or Y? The Y, because it's gallons. This time we're solving for the X, so it's asking what would the temperature be, all right? So see the difference? Yes. So compare the two variables. It seems that the gallons of maple syrup depend on the temperature, not the other way around, right? Our temperature isn't controlled by how much maple syrup there is, so that's why we label the graph that way. So the X is independent, the Y is dependent. So then if I was solving this one, I'd have to plug it in for the Y and then solve for X, which hopefully we're good at. What's farther, the -10 or the 380? How do I cancel the 380? Subtract it, whatever you go on one side. What's 50 minus 380? Okay, and then -10x, opposite of multiplying -10, dividing. And then x ends up equaling what? 33. And this is degrees Fahrenheit. I'll put degrees Fahrenheit. So I don't really know how to spell Fahrenheit. All right. Would it be possible to have a negative temperature? Yes, there's plenty of places where the temperature is negative. So if it's a negative, just also see if it makes sense. Could I have a negative amount of gallons? No. All right, so again, also be able to interpret the answers. Good, any questions? All right, I will ask you to kind of do a U try, but we won't plug in both. So I'll have you do the U try for the 30 degrees Fahrenheit up here, solving for the gallon. And then the U try for the 150 gallon. And then I'll make sure to project those. Once you're done with that, then work on your practice. So that's that paper you picked up on your way in. I will be checking that before, I'll probably be checking it in like 1 minute, but yeah, check your answers as you go to on that. Make sure you're practicing it the right way. And I think last year I was practicing function notation with my students around this time. So I wrote it in function notation. So plugging in the input 30, because that's where for a temperature, so it should go in the X spot. Solve it, you get 80 gallons of maple syrup. Down here, when we are given the gallons and we're solving for the temperature, should have plugged in the 150 in the Y spot and solved for your X. So 23 degrees for when it's 150 gallons of maple syrup. All right, questions on that? Okay. So yeah, there's that. Give you some time to work on the practice. Do reach out if you need help, whether that's to your group mates or to me, up to you. And also check your progress with the key that's on the side wall. Just no copying, no taking pictures of it. Cheating on your homework is honestly like a waste of time. It doesn't do much for your grade. Focus on actually understanding the material. Good, any questions? Okay.